What's up, fellow vegan meatheads? Daniel Austin here. Happy to be doing another interview with one of the world's strongest vegans around. This week it's going to be Dr. Bradie S Crandall, the vegan Hercules himself. Bradie's got a very impressive resume. You know, he started playing football and wrestling, things like that, when he was younger in high school. Had some injuries, later got into powerlifting. In 2023, he went to USPA, drug-tested national championships, got a first-place medal in the classic raw division in his weight class, set some state records for his home state of Delaware. But then he got a bit bored with powerlifting, which is fair, and he got into strongman, and that's where he's really shining now. Just in the last year, Bradie went to the Arnold Pro-Am Invitational. That's at the Arnold Sports Festival, one of the most competitive events in the whole world. And among a whole roster of non-natty lifters, he did pretty well. In the last couple months, he also went and competed at a World's Natural Strongest Man World Championship in Ireland. We go through each event and what that experience was like for him. We talk about his work in chemical biomolecular engineering, working on fermentation of eco-friendly proteins. We discuss proteins that I didn't even know existed. This was a very informative interview for me, so I know it's going to be an informative interview for you. You know, my goal here is always to interview the strongest vegans around, help all of us gain our scope of knowledge on how to optimize our diet, how to optimize our training, how to work through injuries, how to help each other get stronger, win more medals, be a better example of veganism in the world, so humanity collectively will eventually stop killing animals. That's what I hope, you know. Also, just shout out to Bradie because he's not even 30 yet and he's really crushing it. And that's something I want to remind any listeners about. You know, I'm in my 40s. It's not that I don't think my best days aren't still ahead. I think they actually are. I think I'm still going to get stronger in the years to come. However, one of my biggest regrets in life is not being athletic in my teens. You know, I got a guitar and kind of dipped out of being athletic from when I was a child. And I think I missed out on a lot of formative years when I could have just been in that hormonal prime, developing muscle, coordination, agility, just all the ways to be a lethal athlete, you know? If I could go back, I would play guitar, write music, and train my ass off. Because as of today, yeah, I wish I was a lot stronger than I am. I wish I had a better foundation for building strength than I had when I was 32 and I decided I want to get into powerlifting, you know? So shout out to all the young bucks out there who find information like this, who are interested in getting stronger and competing. We need you in this space, and an interview like this and all the content I'm putting out is only meant to encourage you. So thanks for being here and listening. I do hope you find a nugget or two or many in this discussion to help you on your path of vegan power. Before we go any further, I just got to remind everyone to check out my sponsor, Veg Nutrition. It's my favorite vegan protein powder out there. Got delicious flavors like cookies and cream that actually have cookies in them. You could actually chew cookies in your protein powder and it doesn't screw up the macros. They've formulated it that way. My favorite flavor of theirs is the frosted cinnamon roll, just because it's got the highest protein per calorie content. Check them out. Link is in my bio. Link is in the description of this video if you're listening/watching on YouTube. Use code VEGANXMeathead and always get 15% off your order. Great creatine products, great greens powder. They've got collagen if that's your thing. They've got pre-workout if that's your thing. And they have some of the best vegan proteins around. Check them out. Veg Nutrition. Other things to announce is I'm celebrating 20 years of veganism coming up very soon. I recall I went vegan back in early November 2005. I'd been on tour with my band in Mexico. I was the only vegetarian in the band at that time. And I remember the catering I got, because I was the only vegetarian, it just had cheese. Everything had cheese in it. I was eating cheese every day, 2 or 3 times a day. And I got so constipated. I had come home from that trip, and my girlfriend at the time and my mother had gone to see Ingrid Newkirk, the founder of PETA, speak at a conference in Texas. And they were convinced they wanted to go vegan finally as well, because we were all vegetarians. And I come home from being totally cheesed out, not even able to take a dump. And I thought, yeah, you know what? I've always known going fully vegan is the most ethical thing I could do. And I've been putting it off because, you know, I love cheese so much. You know, I'm guilty of that. But I said, yeah, you know, cheese, I know it's not good for me. So I think I just had my last cheese bonanza, and we're going to go vegan right now. And we did, November 2005. So I am throwing a 20 years vegan deadlift party in my current hometown of Norfolk, Virginia, at my home gym of Shark City Barbell. Shout out to Andre and the crew there. Best gym in Hampton Roads. Definitely an environment where I've gotten a lot stronger in the last year. So we're throwing the deadlift party there. It's free, but I've only got limited slots to compete in the deadlift party. Now, you can RSVP at my website, daniel-austin.com. Please go do that. Secure your spot. There are prizes from Veg Nutrition, Agro Pops, which are basically kind of like vegan Cheetos, but high protein. They don't have cheddar flavor. They have sea salt flavor, barbecue, and jalapeno, and they're delicious. It's a new vegan protein startup company called Agro Pops. Please do check them out. Ultima Electrolytes has donated a lot of electrolytes for competitors, party goers. Ultima is an awesome electrolyte brand, so check them out also. We've got Lion's Head Barbershop, my boy Aaron. It's his barbershop. He's a vegan straight edge dude. Good friend of mine. Best barbershop in Hampton Roads. Granted, I don't have hair to cut, but a lot of my friends go there. And it's also a really cool, hardcore kind of environment. So support Lion's Head Barbershop. They'll be offering some prizes in our gift bags for everyone who comes to the party. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, listen, it's not a strict competition environment. We're going to run it kind of like a powerlifting competition, just the deadlift event only. But if you're a beginner at lifting, or if you're not competitive at lifting, but you just want to come celebrate 20 years of veganism with me, be in a fucking awesome environment where we're all going to lift, have fun. Oh, by the way, donuts are included, provided by local amazing bakery, My Vegan Sweet Tooth. There's going to be donuts, deadlifts, a lot of people. You don't have to be vegan. You don't have to be a power lifter, but you do have to RSVP. And if you just want to come watch and hang out, you do also have to RSVP. So hit it up at daniel-austin.com. Come hang out with us on Saturday, November 8th at noon, Shark City Barbell in Norfolk, Virginia. Hope to see you there. Now, let's get on to this informative discussion with my man Bradie S Crandall, the Vegan Hercules. Check it out. Bradie Crandall, what's up, my man?
What's going on, Daniel? How you doing?
So for listeners, we were together about a month ago in Tampa for the Fit Fest, at which the Plant Built Vegan Strong team competed. Bradie is our strongman team captain. Didn't compete that day. And I said, hey, I want to interview while we're here face to face. But you said, well, I'm going to World's Strongest Man next week. Natural World's Strongest Man competition. Right. And we figured it'd be better to catch up after that and get all the details on that, because that's very interesting to have you going there. So I guess start off by telling me your experience there.
Yeah, that was a super interesting experience. So this is my first time going to World's Strongest Natural Man. I had won the U.S. East Coast qualifier, becoming East Coast Strongest Natural Man, which was really cool. But World's Strongest Natural Man was over in Galway, Ireland, and this was actually my very first time competing overseas.
Right.
And I was really hoping to podium. I mean, I was shooting to win the whole thing, honestly, going over there. A couple things happened kind of along the way, but
yeah. Well, before you get into that, is this like you get a roster and you can kind of size up who qualified and who's going to be in your flights and all that? Did you feel like you had a really good chance, sizing up the competition through the stats online and things like that?
So they publicly announce who's competing. I'll say strongman, it's a little difficult to size people up compared to powerlifting sometimes, just because the events are always different. And I'm also just not as familiar with the international athletes. Like I just don't encounter them very often in the U.S. strongman circuit. The only other international level competition I've done was at the Arnold. And that's really primarily U.S. athletes. Okay. So I didn't know exactly what to expect going in it, but I know people that compete at a high level in the U.S. in strongman typically do pretty well overseas. I knew if I showed up ready and had executed well, that I would definitely have a shot to win it and a shot at the podium.
Do you find that in the natural side of strongman internationally, the strongest competitors are usually North Americans on average?
It honestly, it varies a lot, honestly. Really the top guys on the podium were from all over. If you were to pick two areas where there tend to be a higher concentration of people doing well internationally, it's the UK and the US, I'd say. But I mean, you get people winning from countries all over.
Yeah, I did both Nick Squires and I did an international powerlifting league, IPL World Championship in Ireland. Also, it was 2019 where we both flew over there. And what we realized was, it was more competitive at nationals in America, just because I think for a lot of people, the expense of getting there kind of rules a lot of competitors out.
Yeah, I think strongman's different than powerlifting in that it's a more international sport where powerlifting is like pretty clearly dominated by U.S. athletes.
Yeah, maybe like U.S. and Europeans. And I would say the Europeans mostly gravitate towards IPF versus another Fed, Yeah. So, no, I just find it, so ever since then, I just thought, I'm just going to go to nationals and I'll go to Ireland for a vacation or another country for a vacation versus a competition, since it was way more competitive at nationals and powerlifting. But now I was just curious.
I'd say the international stage and strongly the international stage is always more competitive than a national stage in the US.
That's cool. So please continue with your experience traveling overseas and, trying to do the thing there.
Yeah. So I think traveling, so I'm a weight class athlete. So I compete at 231 pounds, 105 kilos. And it's gotten to the point where I do some pretty steep water cuts now going into that. In the off season, I naturally walk around at about 250. And I typically try to water cut like 15 pounds. And I successfully did that for the East Coast qualifier. And I'm sort of angling.
How do you feel when you do that?
Terrible during, but honestly fine day of competition. We get 24-hour weigh-ins. So I've gotten pretty good at, having a process that works for me to rehydrate, get the electrolytes back in, get the
I've always heard it's not wise to do more than 7% of your body weight.
Yeah.
So
that's typically what I hear as well.
You would be doing what? Like, let's see, 7% would be. Yeah, you're better with numbers than me, I'm sure. If you're 250,
I'm doing under 7%. I'm pushing like 5 or 6%.
Okay.
I would never want to water cut more than 15 pounds, to be honest.
Gotcha.
And it's a rule of thumb. It's going to be different for everybody.
But you were trying to do this time like 19 pounds?
No, not quite 19. So normally I'll like diet down a little bit ahead of time, but like in the off season, I'm normally at 250. But then I'll diet down a couple pounds and then water cut the rest.
So this is a point that I think would be interesting for people about prepping for a competition. I do want to get to your experience over there in this competition, but I think water cutting and dieting, or like doing the responsible part of your weight loss to make weight, like what's a way that, like, how far out do you start trying to clean up your diet?
I mean, I keep my diet at this point pretty clean year round. If I feel like right now I'm starting to do a mini cut, I actually don't want to do another 15-pound water cut. I have a competition in January, actually natural nationals in the US. I've decided after a bad experience in Worlds, which we'll talk about, water cutting, I don't want to do that again.
Right.
So I'm shooting for a water cut that's under 10 pounds.
What's the next weight class up in strongman?
It would be 265. Yeah, so they're much bigger jumps than you have.
Yeah, it's like every two classes in powerlifting is one in strongman.
Pretty much, yeah. That's about right, actually.
Yeah. You think you ever want to do that?
I do, yeah, and that's sort of what I've been angling at, walking around at like 250 in the off season. I just want to take some time to, develop my technique a bit more, build some more strength, and then, jump into it and hopefully like win a few more titles at this weight class as well.
Okay. And then when it comes to water cutting, you don't have to get too graphic, but what's your method for that?
I don't like to do anything too crazy. I mean, sometimes you see people using like diuretics or like all sorts of stuff, and
like magnesium citrate or something like that.
Yeah,
dandelion.
I do use dandelion root. My philosophy when it comes to this is like I don't ever want to take anything that I can't immediately kind of have like a stop switch for, because that's when you can get some really like
just shitting all day.
Yes. Well, some health issues too. I mean, you can severely dehydrate yourself. You see bodybuilders die backstage because of this kind of stuff all the time.
Right.
I mean, it's funny, but people do die from it. There's all sorts of stuff too to like, elevate your body temperature to burn extra calories and keep you sweating. And I just don't like to mess with any of that because there's not really a good off switch for it.
Right.
So really, all it is you water load leading up to the competition. Just train your
Mm-hmm.
body to pee a lot. Then you take away the salt, take away the carbs as you get closer, a day or two out. And
So
then
for you, that's like the condiments. The condiments go pretty much.
yeah, pretty much. And then I really, I fast typically the entire day of the competition and drink really minimal amounts of water. If I drink any fluid, it's typically, in the form of caffeine, either like a tea or a coffee, something that's a diuretic. And then using like natural diuretic, like dandelion root, something that's a bit more mild than anything else out there. But
yeah.
And that usually, I can do 15 pounds, but everything kind of has to come together perfectly for that to happen, to be honest.
Right.
Using the methods that I use.
So you were trying to, for this weigh-in, to make 231, you wanted to get somewhere around 245 responsibly, and then water cut?
Yep. So I showed up and flew over to Ireland to give myself enough time to water load and water cut, just so I didn't have to deal with that while I was traveling. So I got there nice and early. And then the other thing I don't like to do too when I'm water cutting is I really don't like to sweat out a lot, just because I feel like it just puts a lot of strain on your body.
Sure.
Right before you compete. So normally that's a last resort, and I'll do like one or two like quick sauna showers or something to get the last pound or so off. But that's kind of it. Some people take it really extreme in the sauna, but
you know what I found worked best for me is getting one of those $15 sauna suits from like Target or one of the sporting goods stores, and I would pack it, and that would be my last resort, right? Like I would do like a mild diuretic the night before, and then if I woke up and I was still over, well then, I'd wake up with a couple hours, and then maybe I would go take a walk in a sauna suit. Sometimes I've worn the sauna suit to the weigh-in, just sweating out that last little ounce.
I think the only reason I don't do that is I just feel so gross. That's why I do the sauna showers.
It feels disgusting. Well, that was the thing, is that I had an experience missing weight for that IPL championship in Ireland in 2019. That was one of the only times I've ever missed weight. And I missed it by like 1.5 pounds. I went over there. I didn't have a sauna suit. Hadn't thought of that yet. And I was starting to get to that point where, I was generally starting to walk. I was a 165-pound power lifter. I was starting to get to that point where I weighed like 170 to 172 walking around. It's not that much to lose, really. So I always thought I could easily lose 3 pounds from either mild diuretic or sweating or whatever. But I went over to Ireland and I couldn't find a sauna that was really hot enough.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like I went to some gyms in the competition that Nick and I did was in Limerick, Ireland, which is just south of Galway a little bit. It's a perfectly nice town. I mean, I enjoyed my time over there in terms of just going around, getting food and getting coffee and sightseeing the castles and stuff and the coast. But I went to this gym and I only had X amount of time, and their sauna just wasn't great. Part of it was I went over about 5 days early and thought I was going to adjust to the time change and get over the jet lag.
That's the other reason I went over early. Yeah.
And it didn't ever work. I never adjusted. And I got a cold because I wasn't well slept. And so when it came time to weigh in, or the day of where I needed to lose those pounds of sweat, I already had a fever and I couldn't. So all this temperature change and travel and lack of sleep, I felt like garbage. And I remember I went to weigh in, and it was Steve Dennison, who's like president of the USPA, and some of the other guys, the senior guys there. They were like, "Bro, can't you just go chew some gum, spit it out? Like you only got 1.5 pounds." And I said, "Guys, I'm like sick. Like I feel like garbage, and I need to have fluids, like electrolytes, like right now." I already went to the sauna, and it's just, can I compete in the 181s? And they said, I think at the time, my 165 total was just like 12 pounds shy of qualifying for 181s. And so they said, we'll let you do it because you're here in Ireland. You came all this way. And they let me do it. And I won second place in the 181s. But
that's nice.
Yeah, that was cool. And I still PR'd my deadlift. I didn't do well on anything else, but I still PR'd and it was a PR total, and it was a more than qualifying total that I ended up with for the 181. So
I mean, doing that sick is super impressive, honestly.
Yeah, that was a real, I mean, one reason I want to talk about this a lot for the listeners is, traveling to compete at a high level and travel and weigh in and all that is a whole strategy you need to have. You need to think of all the variables. And so I hope people listening could get some examples of, oh, maybe going a week early isn't the wisest thing. Or like when I was talking to Ryan Stills about traveling internationally to do big meets, he likes to actually get there the day before and not adjust yet so that the fatigue kicks in after the meet.
Interesting. Yeah.
Which I said, for me, in retrospect, I think I would try it that way if I go overseas for a meet next time. But yeah, it just nothing went right for me. And it sounds like it didn't go well for you in terms of like making weight. But
yeah,
tell me about that experience. Yeah.
So I think we've been alluding to that. I did not end up making weight either. Quite a few factors went into that. One being the international travel. I had my final training session before flying over there, literally right after I got some, I won't go into details on this, but some very bad news about, some threats to my livelihood, essentially. And I literally had a panic attack in my very last training session. But I knew I was like, you know what, I'll compete well because I know I can still, make my lifts during in the middle of a panic attack. So that's probably a good thing, right? I was trying to like convince myself everything was going to be okay. And, I at this point, I knew I had to go all in if I wanted a shot to win. So like I had to make this steep weight cut no matter what. And of course, when you're in that mindset, it's hard to think straight and all that and handle everything. So I get over there and, I'm water loading like normal. And then I start my cut and my body I'm not peeing. Like the water is just not coming off.
Yeah. That's what happened to me in Ireland too. That's part of it.
Yeah. I mean, just the cortisol from the international travel and the stress.
Yep.
I'd also just lost a family member too, like a week before then.
No. Wow.
So it was a lot going on, like in my personal life, and just the international travel on top of that created a bad situation. So I recognized, I think weigh-ins were at like, it was also a night weigh-in, which I wasn't used to. I'm normally used to doing like a morning weigh-in, and then you compete the next morning.
Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah. So this weigh-in was at like 7
So was it
p.m.
really like a 12-hour or a 14-hour weigh-in or something like that?
It was technically a 24-hour weigh-in. I think you had to weigh in between 5 and 7, and competition for me the next day technically started at 5, actually, which is kind of strange.
5 p.m.?
Yeah, kind of strange.
Oh, okay. I mean, honestly, like, I don't know about you. I train at night. As a power lifter, as a strength person, I'm always stronger when I have more calories in me. So I would think in strongman training after you've had plenty of calories in you throughout the day and you feel normal would be better, or what do you think?
I'm pretty adaptable. I think I just like to sleep through kind of the worst part of the weight cut. Those are the final hours.
Oh, yeah, totally.
That.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty adaptable when it comes to training at night. Actually, for a long time, I've trained in the morning. But honestly, like, as I've gotten older, like, I'm just so much tighter and, like, the joints are a bit more achy in the morning that I just...
Wait, as of today, how old are you?
I'm 28.
Okay. Yeah, I'm about to be 43, so just brace yourself. Brace yourself, man.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed changes already starting to happen in the last few years. So I'm like, oh, wow, okay, I got to adjust some
things. How many years now have you been training in strength sports? Like, how many years in strongman and how many years prior was powerlifting?
So I powerlifted for 5 years and been doing strongman for about 2 years now. So 7 total.
Okay. I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot of stress. And I think it does... I think people, when you get past the first 2 or 3 years of going serious in any of this, like, you really start to feel it. You're like always sore.
Yeah, and I played football before that, and
really and you had some pretty you had some pretty serious injuries, right?
Yeah, I did. I had a fractured spine. I had a slap tear in my shoulder. I had to get surgery on. I had a meniscus tear. All that's from football too, and some of it just was left over from football and like aggravated later on in my lifting career, and I had to get surgery on to fix. But yeah, I have quite a few bang-ups. Honestly, no serious injuries directly caused by lifting. They're pretty much all just left over from football.
Right. I mean, you've dealt with some minor injuries that you could heal within a matter of weeks or months, right? I mean...
Yeah, I mean, you get minor things here and there, of course, lifting, but you can... The thing with lifting is you're always in control. Whereas in football, you're not because there's a bunch of other people running around the field, and there's a lot of pressure on you to like not sit out. Whereas in strength training, you know, I'm the one in control. I can just put the weight down when I need to. I can not train that body part and let it rest like I need to. Yeah. And I'm also just smarter now about it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I firmly believe that the people that lift the longest are the strongest.
They lift the longest are the strongest, meaning you accumulate more volume over a longer period of time.
Yeah, this is why like long time to build strength, especially naturally.
This is why the young guys usually have a weak bench.
Yeah. And we see a similar thing in strongman too. I mean, most strongmen probably peak around 35.
Right. So continue on. Tell me, so you don't make weight, but you continue as a guest lifter, correct?
Yeah, so I tried to go up a weight class, tried to do exactly what you did, because, you know, I've seen people do this at the Arnold. People don't make weight, and then they go on and win, even going up a weight class. So I was like, you know, in the back of my mind, I knew I wanted to go up a weight class eventually anyway, so I'm like, all right, well, maybe today's the day, you know? And I guess that wasn't going to fly, which I understand.
How would they rate you to qualify for that?
Yeah, exactly. That's the issue. Technically, like the qualifiers, there's different weight matrices in strongman. So each weight class has a set weight for their events. Mm-hmm. So since I didn't qualify at the heavier weights, which to be honest, I was fully capable of doing the weights that they had said at that show. And they probably knew that, but they have to have the rules are there for a reason, and I get why they're there. It just wasn't. I wasn't fully aware of the rules at the time. And they're also a newer federation, so I don't know if they'd even encountered the scenario before.
Gotcha.
So, and I've seen people in other federations, and, you know, they typically allow people to go up a weight class, but that wasn't the case here, which was unfortunate. But they did allow me to compete as a guest lifter. So basically, you know, I have this new, honestly, like this created a super mentally challenging situation where I just put my body through hell trying to weight cut because since I wasn't peeing, I was just having to sweat out all of this weight. So I sweat out probably 10 pounds in a matter of a few hours. So I did 8 to 10 sauna sessions. I think 8 dry sauna sessions, 10 shower sauna sessions.
That sounds just miserable.
Yeah, and it got to the point where I was 0.9 kilos away. And I was like, I can't safely go back in the sauna because, I knew of like MMA fighters and stuff who had tried to go super. I mean,
that's roughly 2 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you're close, man. Yeah. I was like 1.6 pounds away when I went to do my championship in Ireland, and it was frustrating because I couldn't pee anymore. Couldn't.
Yeah. I could not get in that sauna again because I didn't want to risk brain damage. And then that's what happens when you push your body to those heat extremes.
Right.
I could barely stand at that point. I had to get a chair and sit in line to weigh in.
Oh, dude.
So it was rough. It was rough.
Well, how did you end up feeling about your guest lifter performance?
So I actually felt really good about my guest lifter performance. I don't know how I was able to bounce back from sweating all of my electrolytes out and draining myself like that the day before, but I actually went into competition day feeling pretty good. And this was a very long competition too. This was 2 days, 7 events, which is a lot in strongman. This is more events I've ever done in one comp. And it's
how often, because I'm not super familiar with the structure of strongman competitions. How often is it? Mostly like a championship thing when you have a 2-day competition?
Yeah, they're normally the higher level competitions. You get 2 days of competition, and then there's normally more events. So on a local level, you'll see 4 to 5 events, normally 5. Mm-hmm. And then once you get to the higher level, you'll get 2-day competitions with 6 or 7 events.
And how wrecked are you after day 1?
Honestly, I think that's one of my advantages. I do really well in the longer comps. I'm just better conditioned. I recover quick. Okay. Part of that probably is due to the vegan diet. Part of it is just being a well-rounded athlete. So I'm pretty good at managing myself. I mean, obviously, you get beat up. You don't feel great the next day, but you just have to keep going with it. And, you find your ways to stretch out and keep the blood flowing. Take ibuprofen here or there, icy hot. You do what you have to make sure you're going to get through each event. And a lot of it too is there's some strategy involved with managing
Yeah, totally.
Like if you know you can win an event without going completely all out, like there's no point in wasting the energy when you still have 5 more events afterwards.
Yep.
So that's part of the strategy that goes into that. I mean, that once you get to a world level, you kind of have to go all out on everything, to be honest, at that point, typically to win.
Yep.
Unless you can pull ahead early on and then get a little bit of wiggle room in the later events. But so the first event, maybe I'll go through the events that we had at Worlds this year.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about that.
We had started off with an axle deadlift for reps. So for my weight class, we had 615 on an axle. And then you got as many reps as possible in a minute on that.
So the axle, that's when you have like the big wheel plates?
So you can have like an elevated axle. This was off the floor. So this is standard deadlift height. It's just on an axle bar.
Okay.
So with the axle bar, there's no flex on this.
Yep.
The grip's a challenge, but you get to use straps. So that kind of cancels it out. But there's no flex off the floor. So you have to be strong off the floor on this.
Yep.
Which I tend to be weak off the floor, but it's something I've really been working on and doing a lot of axle deadlifting. And I've gotten much better at it.
What do you train strictly like with the axle bar to improve that? Is that the best way you're addressing that, or?
Yeah. I mean, training with the axle is the best way to do it. I mean, maybe throwing in some deficit deadlifts here and there to change things up, but I don't like doing those too often. They could just put a lot of strain on my lower back.
Sure.
But yeah, training with the axle as much as I can, I found to be super helpful. So I ended up getting 3 reps on that. The other challenging thing on the axle too is there's no markers to line up your hands, which is actually a big deal, because if you're even slightly off with your hand placement or your feet placement, that axle bar is coming up crooked, which happened to me at Worlds, which sucked.
Okay.
So I was able to crank out 3 reps, which put me in top 5. So I think there were 33 guys. So that's actually not a bad.
So were you, as a guest lifter, did they actually just record your score like you were part of the meet?
So it's interesting. So the first day they had me actually in the scoreboard and recording me against the other guys, but I kept winning and placing high in these events. So the second day they're like, we got to take you out because like you're gonna mess with the final score, and things can completely change in strongman depending on like how you place. The scores change wildly if you just take one person out of the competition that's doing well.
Right.
So they had to take me out the second day, unfortunately. So it's hard for me to like keep track. The other thing that happens too is we go in heats. So your heat placement is based on how you did in the last event. So the first day, since I was doing well at the events, I'd always be in the final heat or second to last heat. And I get to go head to head against, the top guys and, be able to kind of compare myself in real time as I'm doing the event and pace myself. Once they took me out of the scoreboard, they said, oh, you're going to go in the first heat every time. So now I'm stuck with the guys that are, consistently placing last at every event. And most of them aren't even completing the event. So you get to the point where the second day, I'm the only one completing the event until they get to like the last heat or second to last heat, which is a very strange position to be in. So I kind of set the bar for those guys, but it is what it is. It's a big mental challenge for me too, knowing like, okay, I could crank out another rep or 2 on this axle deadlift, but like, is it worth it? Because I've tweaked my back in competition on a deadlift before. And I was like, 3's fine. That should give me good points. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I'd rather come out of this thing healthy. And, I still want to make a point and have these other guys know what's coming for them next year and prove to myself what I'm capable of. But like, I definitely had another rep or 2 in me, especially if I had not been crooked. But I decided to just, leave it at 3. And then that was actually really solid points for me.
Okay.
After that.
So if you had been officially on the scoreboard, where would you have placed?
I believe that would tie me for 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many guys were in this overall?
33.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah. So that was a really good starting point. Deadlift 2 is like, it's an okay event for me. It's actually not one of my strongest events. I do best on moving events typically. And
yeah. You seem really fast.
Yeah. Anything I get to be like super athletic on, I do well at. So yeah, I'm quick, and a lot of that's just athleticism carryover from football.
Yeah, you played sports as a kid? Too?
Yeah, and I think that makes a huge deal in
Oh, absolutely,
strongman. Like
man.
people that played a variety of sports when they were young. I think football also is a great one. Rugby players typically do well. Yeah, anybody that has like a well-rounded athletic background typically does pretty well in
Man,
strongman.
I find, obviously I don't know nearly as much about strongman as I do powerlifting, but in powerlifting, I find that you'd be surprised that some of the best lifters are people who even came from soccer. They just have really well developed, hamstrings. They have explosive power. Or even sometimes people who did like a lot of cycling. I find wrestlers do great.
Yeah, I
do
wrestled
great in
too.
powerlifting.
I wrestled too. I hated
wrestlers
it,
do
but
great.
I was pretty good at wrestling, actually.
Yeah. They're just built for it, but because usually wrestlers aren't that tall.
Yeah.
They're usually stockier, and usually they have the body type that's just amazing at powerlifting.
Yeah, and I ended up quitting wrestling so I could put on weight for football. Actually, so
yeah,
I hated the weight cutting.
I say it a lot. It's like I wish when I was a kid I had stayed in athletics. Because, I got into music. I got a guitar when I was, I think it was my 11th birthday, maybe my 12th birthday. And, man, I played football. I played soccer. I even played basketball, even though I'm short. And I was actually really good as a kid in little league stuff. I played baseball. I was a pitcher. I was a backup quarterback and a tight end when I played football as a kid. I was pretty well rounded. I think all that development and that coordination really helped me. I don't think I'm great at powerlifting. I think I'm better than average, but a lot of people wish they could be better than average, and I think the childhood development really made a big difference and given me a foundation. And so, yeah, I'm sure you were very athletic as a kid.
I was fair. I was okay. I don't think my athleticism really came into full bloom until, kind of later in high school with football. Mm-hmm. And then I think I'd always loved the weight room training. That was actually probably my favorite part of football. And then I actually started throwing shot and discus because our coach for the shot and disc team, track and field, he was like an old school Olympic weightlifter. So we did a lot of Olympic weightlifting during practice. And I joined the team just for that. So I always really enjoyed strength sports. Just, I guess at the time I was too young to realize you could just compete in that. But yeah, I think in general for kids, like people should let them compete in all these sports because developing that athleticism is going to end up transferring over to whatever they decide to do later on.
Yeah.
And I think now we're kind of seeing this weird trend in strongman where there's a lot of like youth strongman stuff popping up, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I just don't think it's a good idea for kids to specialize too early on, in my opinion, until their bodies are fully developed. Mm-hmm. I think it's better to just develop a wide breadth of athletic skills.
Yeah. I mean, when you're that age, you're going to develop muscle anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
You could even probably undereat and still develop muscle at that age, So yeah, just play basketball, play football, soccer, whatever. I mean, you're going to track and field, you're going to develop, and the coordination too,
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Definitely. And it's really people that don't have that coordination and athleticism that are much more prone to get injured too. I mean, like under a 700, 800 pound yoke, one wrong step and, you're going to blow out your knee. So things like that play a huge role in strongman. Same with powerlifting. I mean, you get out of your groove in a bench or something and there goes your pec.
Yep.
So, I mean, if you have a little bit more flexibility, a little more coordinated, like all those things come into play.
Totally. So what was your second event?
But anyways,
in the World's Strongest Man?
Yeah, second event. We had a little bit more of an athletic event that I do better at. This was a yoke into power stairs. So the yoke is it's that big implement you carry on your back.
It looks like a field goal.
Yeah, I mean it's like a yoke you'd see like I guess like an ox carry or something. Yeah, like a field goal. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And they load it up at the base, right?
Yep. Yeah. So this was 750 pounds here. And I think we're walking like 50 to 75 feet. I don't remember the exact distance. But then immediately after carrying that, we had to go into grabbing, how do I describe a power stair? It's like a pin that has a bunch of weight on it. And you almost kind of like sumo deadlift it up. And then you have to put it on a stair in front of you. And there's like this giant staircase with super high steps.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you're like awkwardly kind of like doing these sumo deadlifts and hopping up the staircase.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's pretty
I,
brutal
I,
on your
ha- I
back.
have seen that event. Not much, but I have seen that on like
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't pop up all the
shows.
time in
Yeah.
strongman, but
Yeah.
I don't know. People enjoy watching it, and it's just one of those weird things. I guess it's like a Ukrainian deadlift.
Right.
If
Right.
you're familiar with that, but
Was anybody eating shit on the stairs?
there's definitely some trips and stuff for sure because you're just so tired after that yoke. You're
Right,
gassed.
man.
I mean, you just deadlifted too, so your back's fried, and you have to carry this
Yeah.
yoke and then do these power stairs. And a lot of guys didn't finish.
Gotcha.
I did pretty well in this. Again, I think I was definitely top 5. I don't remember my exact placing for all the events, to be honest. But I did pretty well in this event as well. Then we get into the third event, and this was a Hercules hold. So this is a purely like grip based event.
Yeah, this is the pillars, right?
Yeah, the pillars you stand between. You have your arms spread wide, and you're just like holding on to these things for dear life. One thing I didn't realize actually, and this is partly on me, I should have prepared better, is the handles. I didn't realize how thick they were going to be on this implement. So these handles, I've been training with handles like standard handles you'd use on like a cable.
Like for rows and things like that.
Yeah. The handles here were so thick you couldn't get your thumb and fingers around them all the way. Maybe only like halfway.
Wow.
So it's like, oh shit, I've been training to go for like a minute and a half on this thing, and like people are going to last like 30-40 seconds with how thick these handles are.
Yeah.
Which is, a very different kind of
I would
range.
think if even that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did, surprisingly.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
So I actually did not end up doing great in this event. I finished like middle of the pack, I think 16th out of 33. This is also just one of those wild card events that people either love or hate, where like it completely can change the lineup. People that do terrible at the first 2 events can just have like crazy grip strength and be good at this. It's just one of those weird ones they just kind of like throw in the mix to like, show how well-rounded people are. I think this is the first grip event I've ever encountered, like a pure grip event and then strongman. So it's something I need to train more.
Okay.
From there, we went on to another pretty good event for me. So this was a sandball carry and load. So the sandball is a newer implement that Cerberus has put out there. And it's pretty much just a sandbag, but it's a sphere.
Okay.
It's a lot trickier to carry than a regular sandbag, just harder to get around. And the ones they were using here were packed like super loose. So they're like just sliding out of your arms. It was just super sloppy to deal with. It sucked. It was 280 pounds, the implement, and you couldn't get your arms all the way around it. So, I mean, it's massive. So we had to carry this thing like 75 feet or something, 50, 75 feet, and then load it over a bar for as many reps as we could in a minute. I ended up getting like 4 reps. I think there's some guys that struggle to get any reps. I think some people didn't get any reps at all. I think 5 reps won. So again, top 3 here, I believe, on that event. And normally in strongman too, I'll say that like if you're placing top 3 consistently, that you're in a pretty good shot to like win that show, because so many like consistency is the biggest thing. Like all these events are so different that some people might be winning an event and then doing terrible at the next one.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, and strongman's not like powerlifting, whereas if you bomb out on an event, like you don't get any reps or you don't put any points on the board from an event, say you got 6 more events, you could still win. You're not disqualified, right?
No. I mean, I'd say the biggest thing that can hurt you in strongman is if you zero an event. So if you just can't move an implement at all, and there's no way they can give you any points. So maybe we should talk a little bit how they actually deal with the point structure in strongman. So if there's 33 guys in my weight class, the first place for each event will get 33 points, and the second place will get 32 points.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of how they do it. But if you zero an event, you get 0 points. So if like 10 guys, maybe out of the 33, 0, they all get 0 points. So that can hurt. That can hurt because you might be, still in the top, 25 guys or so. But if you're still zeroing, it's a 0. It's a big old goose egg. You don't get any points, which hurts over time. if you zero one or two events, that could be it. I mean, even one event. But anyways, so that kind of concluded day one. The next day, this kind of sucks. We competed at night, and then the next day we were in there at like noon to start. So not even a full 24 hours to recover. Surprising, I felt fine actually going into the next day. And the first event was a max axle clean and press. So again, we have the axle bar, and you have to basically take it off the ground, clean it. Again, it doesn't rotate at all, this bar, so it's not like you can just hand clean it. And it's also super thick, and we don't get to use wraps on this to keep our grip. You just have to chalk up and grip it. And normally what people do is a continental clean, where they kind of like bring it up to your belt and kind of awkwardly like work it up to your chest.
Yeah.
And then from there, you press it by any means necessary. Push press, split jerk, get it above your head, basically. You strict press if you want. Some people do. So the rules for this were kind of interesting. They decided to give people 5 attempts, which is a lot, and it dragged on the show, which I was kind of annoyed with. But I decided, you know what, like, I'm here as a guest lifter. I don't want to go out there and take 5 attempts, because that's just super time consuming. I also realized they were going really quick with these attempts, so you just weren't getting much time to recover, because it was just you and your weight class. So, if you get your final 3 attempts and they're all a lot heavier than the other guys, you might only be up there with 5 more guys, and you guys are just constantly, going through reps, and there's 4 guys at once going. So I figured, you know what, I'm just going to start and open. I think I had the heaviest opener. I opened at like 300 pounds, and they were like shocked. But I was like, I know I can hit 300 even on a bad day. And historically, I'm bad at pressing, but I actually do quite well in an axle clean and press, because I have a good split jerk. And again, that's just my athleticism coming into play. So I ended up winning this event at 330 pounds.
Oh, nice.
On my second attempt. You get 5 attempts, so I had quite a few to go. So they're like, how heavy is this guy going to go? But I opened pretty heavy. So I knew I was only going to do one more attempt. And my next attempt, so the other thing in strongman too is there's almost always fixed jumps. It's not like powerlifting where you get to pick your jumps.
Oh, right.
So the jumps here were like 20-pound jumps. I forget what they exactly were in kilos. I think it was 10-kilo jumps, actually.
Yeah, it's like 22 pounds, yeah.
Yeah. So I went from 330 to the next attempt being like 350. And that would actually tie the record for both the heavyweight class. And I talked to the organizer too. I'm like, I didn't make weight. Can I at least have a shot to like tie this record for the heavyweights? He's like, you know what? Sure. So I go out there and I get it up to my chest. It actually felt pretty good. And I just barely missed the lockout, which was kind of a bummer on the 350. So I would have at least been able to walk away with a world record and the next weight class up, which would have been cool. But yeah, I know I'll get it another time. Because at that point, too, like I said, they were moving so quick. I had to go right for my 330 and then follow myself up with the 350 and only got like a minute to recover. If I had more time to recover, I think I would have gotten it. But it is what it is.
It's cool, man.
Yeah, it was a cool event. Then after the sandbag clean and press, we had a sandbag toss. So they put out like 5 of these sandbags with little handles on them. They were 30 pounds up to like 55 pounds, 58 pounds, something like that. Again, it's in kilos, so I forget. And then you have to toss them over a 13-foot bar behind you. I did pretty well at that event. I was the first guy to, finish all the sandbags and actually get them all over the bar. A lot of people struggled on that last like heavy 57-pound sandbag or whatever it was. So that was cool. Pretty good at throwing events typically. Then the final event, again, was a super athletic event where we had a Zercher carry into a sandbag carry. So the Zercher carry is, like a Zercher squat, but you're carrying the bar. So it's in the crux of your elbow pits, which sucks because it's super heavy. So
yeah. I hate those. They're awful.
I've learned to love Zercher squats, but I do not like Zercher carries.
Okay.
Just because you cannot breathe when this thing's like on your chest like that because you're squeezing it so tight. It just takes a lot out of you. And this was like 550 pounds, I believe.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Wow. So it's brutal to walk with in front of you like that. And your back this is the final event. So your back is cooked.
Yeah.
And everyone's dead. Your legs are dead. Everything hurts. Everyone's tired. Like your nervous system's done.
Hell yeah.
So this was like a gritty final event, and they knew that. Like they definitely knew that. They could have done something easy like a sandbag toss at the end, but no, or the Hercules hold at the end. But no, they put this here purposely. And then after you do that, you have to carry a sandbag, and then so it's a Zercher carry, sprint back, grab a 280-pound sandbag, load it over the bar, carry the Zercher carry again down another 50 feet, sprint back, grab the 280-pound sandbag, and load it one more time. So it was a tough event, and I did really well at it. Actually, I love sandbag loading events and carries generally, and I'm conditioned pretty well. So I actually didn't think this was too bad. I mean, I was winded after, but I was one of the only guys to finish the event. Actually, interestingly, the guy that won the whole competition did not finish this event.
Wow,
he couldn't do it. He died.
So does that mean he zeroed or?
No, for this event, they were taking like final distance.
Okay.
So if you were able to get the final distance basically farther than the last guy, they would rank points off of that. So they weren't zeroing people on this. Normally where you see zeros, I mean, it just comes down to the rules, and every comp and every event's different. But like if it's for max reps and you get 0 reps, like that's a clear 0. But if they decide they're going to do, like, they'll call it like split distances, where they'll rank people based on the total distance they get, then you won't 0 basically. As long as you move like an inch right off the bat, you won't 0.
Okay.
So overall, it's actually pretty difficult to say how I did, because they took me out of the scoreboard the second day. Clearly top 5, maybe top 3.
That's amazing, dude.
That's under like a pretty non-ideal.
It was all in that 2 pounds, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah. No, that was under very non-ideal conditions and a lot of stress. And
well, just so our listeners know, you also competed at the Invitational Pro-Am for the Arnold.
I did, yes.
Which is amazing, and I just want to publicly congratulate you for being invited to do that, because I've been to the Arnold running the table for the Vegan Strong team, but haven't tried in my sport to try to qualify to go compete. But I just think it's so cool that we had fellow team members there competing, because it was you, Angeline Berva, Rick Carroll, who else? Was it Melissa Busta?
Ronnie Cornier, Melissa Busta. Oh gosh, I'm gonna forget people. Esther Mangino, who we brought onto the team this year.
She competed at Arnold too?
Yeah, so there were 8 vegans. 8 vegans total competing in Strongman at the Arnold, which is
that's
crazy.
Amazing. I thought it was like 4 or 5.
This is a very high level competition in Strongman, just so people are clear too. This is probably the heaviest competition too. Like the Arnold prides itself in being the heaviest Strongman competition. So the weights are not easy to move.
Okay. And so would you say that you thought it was more competitive than the Worlds that you went to?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I did think about this a little bit. So the Arnold is not drug tested. World's strongest natural man, obviously, very much tested. The interesting thing is, like, in terms of static strength, the Arnold, like, you definitely had guys there that had a lot more static strength. Like, I would not have won like a max axle clean and press at the Arnold.
Sure.
But the guys at World's Strongest Natural Man were just so athletic and so much quicker that they could go toe to toe, I think, with the top guys at the Arnold on like the moving events and the more athletic events. So that's, I think, where you see, the big differences between drug tested versus untested strongman. It really is like the static lifting events.
That makes sense. I would think your heart health is poor if you're building more muscle with some enhancement, and also your joint health is probably going to be poorer. So your endurance overall is just not going to be as good if you're enhanced, right?
Yeah. I think like the natural guys know they have to be more athletic, because up until recently there was no natural strongman federation. So these people were all competing against people that are on PEDs. So that they realize that they have to be good at the athletic events to compete.
No, that's right. But I think I recall, I looked up the scoreboard from that. I think you like finished like kind of middle of the pack. Is that right?
Yeah, it was about middle of the pack at the Arnold, which honestly I was pretty happy with that showing, being like
I think that's
Arnold
great.
Debut. That was my first really big competition in strongman, first international level competition. So I want to get back to the Arnold probably 2027. thing with strongman is there's just so many different pathways that like I didn't even get a chance this year. I probably won't even get a chance next year to do like a true qualifier for the Arnold.
Right.
But I'm hoping to get back there and make it to the finals and probably, well, hopefully podium.
Was that a 2-day competition also?
Yeah, that was another 2-day competition.
Okay. And what do you think it would take to win your class in that? Like, what do you need to do? What do you need to improve?
That's interesting. Yeah. I definitely need to keep working on my static strength. That's a big thing. And then I need to work on my consistency. That's the biggest thing I realized at my first time at the Arnold. I think my consistency was actually pretty good at World's Strongest Natural Man outside of Hercules hold. That was probably one of my most consistent performances to date. That's just something I think you have to develop over time in strongman because there's so many different events. Like I kind of bombed the log press at the Arnold just because it was the first event. I had a lot of nerves, not a good pressure to begin with, but like my technique was not where it should have been. Like I knew I should have had better technique than I did. It just wasn't, using my cues. Like my head just wasn't there. Like I should have been log pressing over 300. I was hoping for like 320, and I barely hit 285 that day. So, little things like that, come into play.
Well, so that brings us to an interesting point of discussion: is how do you program to compete well at this sport, right? Like, for example, when you were powerlifting, would you say that programming for powerlifting is a lot more straightforward and easier to calculate?
Yeah, I'd say powerlifting programming is much easier. So I did all my own programming when I powerlifted, but once I went to strongman, I knew I had to hire someone to get coaching because there's so many new events and every competition prep is completely different. Whereas in powerlifting, like you can almost recycle a lot of old programming and kind of make slight tweaks and, maybe increase the weights a little bit competition to competition, identify new weaknesses and make tweaks. But like you generally keep a lot of the programming similar. Where strongman, every program you got to build from scratch, from the ground up for each competition you do. And when you start doing multiple competitions kind of back to back, I like to compete in at least 4 competitions a year, maybe 6 tops.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah,
so
you might be prepping for 2 comps at once. Sometimes you're figuring out, what comp you want to prioritize, and it's tricky.
So yeah, you do 4 to 6 competitions a year. In my experience in powerlifting, the most I've ever done in a year is 3.
Yeah, because you're probably just doing, a qualifier for the big comp, then the big comp, and then, maybe something else, right?
Yeah, essentially that's what I was doing. And I started in my 30s, so that might be an issue as well. But I found hitting my 40s, I can't do that anymore because it was just wrecking me. Now, I dialed it back and I only did 2 this past year, and it helped me so much, right? Now, in strongman, how often do you feel like you're handling something that's in the range of maximal weight? Is it because there's more endurance in that sport, you can do it more often? Like, do you still train 4 days a week, 5 days a week? What's a training block look like?
Yeah, I typically train 4 days a week. When I'm in a high volume phase and really want to push that, I'll do like 5 days a week tops. Normally that 5th day, like it's usually not a ton of like really heavy compound movements. It's just kind of some extra like bodybuilding type volume being thrown in there. Because everything's super fatiguing once you get up to all these different compound events and moving events in strongman.
Well, in a training block, do you have phases where you are handling purposely more maximal weight?
And there might be certain events or variations of the events where I even I do like overload training, for example, in certain things. Like for I don't know, maybe an example is yoke carries where I might throw on, knowing I have a 700 or 800 pound yoke, I might throw 900 pounds on the yoke and just, stand with it, hold it, and brace and practice that, like a little bit of overload training. But I'm not going to walk with it because that's super risky with something like the yoke. But I think a lot of the principles are the same that you use in powerlifting. It's just the event variety is so much more numerous. And if you think about the amount of thought you put into a squat, bench, and deadlift in powerlifting, the top strongman competitors are putting pretty much that same amount of thought towards each of these individual events they prep for each competition. So it's a lot of strategy, identifying weaknesses, figuring out how to train things. Sometimes the events themselves are difficult to figure out how to even train for. something like a fingal finger where you're like flipping a telephone pole essentially. Like, how do you even train for that, right?
Right,
You got to
right.
figure out a way.
So how much does bodybuilding type assistance come into play in a strongman program?
Yeah, so I mean, we typically I'll have a big off season where I'm doing a lot of high volume bodybuilding work and trying to build more muscle mass, like a building phase.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I get closer to competition, I'll decrease volume and slowly ramp up the intensity, and then peak going into competition. And there's sort of a peaking phase. So that's kind of how I think about it, like 3 phases: a high volume phase, high intensity phase, and then like a peaking phase.
Okay. And how many weeks is that usually?
Depends on the competition. Ideally, if I want a serious prep for a competition, I like 3 months minimum, but really the longer the better. And sometimes if I'm doing, multiple comps, or my clients are doing multiple comps, like some of the comps are just going to end up being like, I call them like a train through comp, where we're just not going to completely peak for this comp, but keep, volume relatively high and just treat it like an event day, basically.
Sure.
So like in strongman, the way we structure our splits a lot of times is like how I typically will structure things, and it can vary depending on the competition, is I like to do like a deadlift day, a press day, a squat day, and then an event day. That's sort of like the basic structure I'll use, but it can vary. So sometimes you just treat that competition you're doing like the event day.
How much has your eating needed to change to facilitate the way you train now? Because, all right, so like for our listeners, you've written a book, came out a few 2-3 years ago.
It was during COVID. Machine? Yeah, it's actually.
Oh, is that long ago?
4 or 5 years ago now. Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah. Time flies, man. And it's
PhD after. Yeah,
it's interesting because you write from a very analytical engineering perspective, because you're a biomolecular engineer.
Chemical biomolecular. Yeah, you got it.
Oh, okay. Something. Yeah, not like I really know, but no, you write with a very like calm, rational perspective on these things, and so like your training has changed. And how much has your diet changed from writing the book?
So I've made a lot of changes in my diet, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's because of my strongman training. It's more so just wanting to step up my nutrition game and wanting to be healthier. Mm-hmm. And also just trying to like manage things like blood pressure and stuff like that, which I've gotten a pretty good handle on actually now, especially as I start to put on more and more muscle mass and more body mass. Like your blood pressure is just going to go up, so you have to find a way to manage that. So I've sort of have some like general principles I've tried to apply to my diet now. I'd say there were times, especially during COVID, where I played it pretty fast and loose with my diet, where I was like, all right, we're just going to hit a protein goal. And then that was pretty much it. That was the main goal of my diet. Eat a lot of carbs, eat a lot of protein, and call it good enough. Not really tracking much. Eating a lot of processed food.
And how fluffy did you get doing that?
So during COVID, I had this really dumb strategy. I was like, all right, I don't have access to a gym. So to retain muscle mass, I'm just going to eat as much as possible. So I got up to at the time I competed at 242. And honestly, I was a little fluffy at 240 already. But I pushed up to 265, close to 270 at that time, which I completely regret because I felt terrible.
Right.
And I did not put on that much.
Well, think about it. I mean, I didn't have access to a gym either, and I actually just hardly got to train in any capacity because I was doing a lot of. I tried to do hill sprints at the park, and I tried to do a lot of calisthenic type stuff. And for me, just not having any way to do maximal weight, I just didn't feel stimulated, and I got really frustrated, and I just I just stopped. I was in Tennessee at the time, and. Tennessee and Texas and Florida, I think, were the first 3 states to open back up. But I think it was, I think it was 7 weeks of not being able to have, a bar on my back, essentially, and not having proper. But that 7 weeks, it took about 7 weeks to get back to where I was. But the cool thing about it was because I'd never taken that time off since I'd started powerlifting. And I think at that point I was about 5 years into powerlifting. That year was one of my biggest jumps in my total.
Oh,
because
wow.
I
That's
was
awesome.
I was so fresh. And what I realized is, and I realized this last year when I started to have all those aches and pains from being in my 40s and squatting for 10 years straight, is I took about 3 whole weeks off after our plant-built meet in Atlantic City last year because I was really upset with myself. But it helped so much
Yeah.
to come back fresh. And if you can get especially as you get older, you can get your tendons more time to heal and catch up with the rest of your body and your joints, essentially. That will help you be fresher, to go harder when you get back into the on season, right? That's what worked for me this past year. And so I learned that it was kind of a happy accident of, the time off helped. Of course, I didn't ever do that again until I was in so much pain last year that I had to, but just 3 weeks off last year helped me big time. So
yeah,
anyway.
I think that load management and fatigue management is so important as you advance in any strength sport. Because the temptation early on, of course, is to max out as often as possible, and that's just not a sustainable way to train. And I think it gets to the point where most people later in their careers, they're really saving their maxes for competition day.
Yeah.
And peeking into that.
Yeah. So I'm making a rule, after we just competed last month, I took 2 whole weeks off before I even came back to do any light workouts.
Yeah.
And I feel good. I mean, it feels good to be approaching 43 and not be in any pain at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm making it a rule. Every year I'm taking at least 2 to 3 weeks off.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so see, where were we? We were talking about
diet changes. Yeah.
Yeah, diet changes. Okay. Yeah, so you got real fluffy because weren't able to train the same, and you just thought you were going to maintain the muscle, so you were going to overeat.
Yeah, just not quite how it works. But that was the strategy I was going with at the time. And
rookie mistake.
Then I had to get back into shape after. But it's actually right after. Then I think that maybe partially motivated me to want to compete in strongman and kind of be done with powerlifting. I just wanted to be more athletic. Honestly, was a big motivation. Mm-hmm. I missed, having that feeling of being athletic during football and being able to do like athletic movements and training. Mm-hmm. And I love static strength, but I enjoyed the athletic movements a lot more.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that is a personality and other lifestyle factors thing for people.
Yeah.
I'm interested in strongman. I think I would enjoy it more than CrossFit. Like my wife does CrossFit, and I go when it's reasonable for me to go based on the programming for the day. I think it's good for me to get that kind of conditioning in, but I just really don't enjoy it. It's always like a torture session for me.
Yeah. So I actually train at a big CrossFit gym, Invictus DC. So Invictus is like a huge brand in the CrossFit world. They have a gym in San Francisco and then one in DC. And I coach strongman out of there, and it's kind of interesting. Like the owner is super interested in strongman, and we're starting to see a lot of strongman events kind of pop up in CrossFit now. Mm-hmm. With things like a yoke, a log showing up, lots of sandbag carry, sandbag to shoulder, even sometimes some axle bar stuff. So, I train strongman out of there, and then also a lot of the CrossFitters get interested and come to a lot of my classes and stuff. So that's kind of a cool experience to be able to like introduce people to strongman movements that are interested in CrossFit and kind of the crossover there. It's interesting, but yeah, I mean, CrossFit definitely isn't for me either at this point in my life. I don't know if it ever will be. I just enjoy training heavy, to be honest, too much for it.
Totally, yes.
I don't enjoy high rep work, or I'm perfectly happy with my longest events being 60 to 90 seconds rather than like 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. So that's just me.
So but back to the diet changes. You said you had some principles.
Yeah, so I had some general principles I wanted to implement just to be healthier, essentially. And I knew, hopefully there'd be some performance carryover as well. And I think there is. The first being I wanted to minimize saturated fat in my diet, just on the principle that, high amounts of saturated fat in your diet have not been shown to be great for your heart. And they also can slow blood flow. And that, of course, is going to create challenges to get nutrients and oxygen to your blood. And that saturated fat stays in your blood for, a couple hours after a meal. So if you're eating, saturated fat regularly, that's a lot of time your blood flow isn't optimal. Mm-hmm. So I knew that's something I wanted to try to minimize. And not saying it has to be at zero, but certainly, minimal levels.
Do you get your blood work done?
I've done it once actually. I don't do it
Okay.
regularly just because it's expensive.
Yeah, I didn't start till I was about 35.
Yeah, I would like to do it more regularly though.
Now, because, I'm 40s and I've started to get aches and pains and just not feel the same. And there's definitely some hormonal changes, like slight, like I did
Yeah.
have one reading one time for testosterone. I told you about it when we were hanging out in Tampa. It was actually pretty close to diagnosably low, but it's the only time I'd ever. And, I went and got it done again a couple of weeks ago and I'm back to normal, which is slightly above average for a guy my age. But I like to keep, and the funny thing is the time that I had a low testosterone reading, it was a couple weeks after, at the time, my best meet ever, and I felt good. Like, I was surprised. Like, I wonder why. But these things kind of change so much.
Yeah.
However,
did you get a second reading to verify that it was actually as low as you thought it was? Was it a fluke?
Well, yeah, I don't really have the money to
I know,
do it.
it's expensive.
Like,
That's the thing with
yeah,
blood work. It's like you eat one
Yeah.
weird meal or have like a weird stressful week, and like that blood work could be completely off. So it's information, but it's it's just a glimpse into that very moment.
Yeah. So, like for example, if I remember one time I went to the lab the night before, I'd eaten a big Mediterranean meal with a lot of pita bread, and my glucose was like 92, which is higher than usual for me, And but then other times, if I don't eat like that before I go in, my glucose is more like 82, which is a lot more normal. I don't know. Some people start to think, oh, that's kind of high. I'm like, well, I ate a bunch of carbs yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, things like that do matter. But, the more long-term things I like to keep track of are, yes, testosterone, estradiol, LDL cholesterol, which, I think, triglycerides and LDL, that informs how much fat and saturated fat you should eat. Right. And I'm trying to reduce my saturated fat as I get older because my LDL is just going up, which is frustrating, but I feel fine. But I know on paper, like, this is not optimal. So I'm trying to reduce the saturated fat as well.
Yeah, I think it's good to be proactive like that. And I think this really illustrates too why regular blood work is so important, just because, there could be a fluke or something you ate weird that day. But if you see that same issue popping up, a second blood test or a third blood test months apart, then you say, okay, maybe I need to actually.
Yeah, exactly. I say on average, I get about every 4 months. So yeah, I got my
great.
last,
Yeah, I think that's great.
I got my last lab test and just a couple of weeks ago. Like end of August, early September, whenever it was. And then before that was like May. Before that, it was like January. So I'll probably wait till like after the holidays or something again. But yeah, it's pricey. Luckily, I got a solid day job and like a health savings account, and it helps with stuff like that because I don't really go to the doctor much.
Gotcha.
Being a healthy vegan with vegan power and all, So I use it to be proactive, But yeah, what any other principles?
Yeah,
in your diet currently?
Minimizing saturated fat, and I try to focus on minimally processed foods, and that kind of plays hand in hand with reducing saturated fat as well.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say I eat a completely whole foods diet, but definitely trying to.
I think it's really hard for any strong people to eat a completely whole foods diet as a vegan.
It's hard, yeah, because just managing the volume and managing your digestion,
and also the amount of fiber can really get out of hand. I mean,
yeah, that's the other thing I've been trying to manage. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's sort of one of my other principles too, is managing my digestion and the volume while still trying to eat as healthy as possible. And I sort of have some strategies to do that I'll talk about in a second. But then also, again, these all kind of go hand in hand, but trying to maximize micronutrient intake and food variety to help promote my gut microbiome. That's sort of my fourth principle. But really to manage that volume and to be able to eat more whole foods, I realize there's a couple keys. Is one, I have to be a little bit flexible with the definition of a whole food and like including some minimally processed food. Things like olive oil or like agave. I eat quite a bit of. Just because they're good calories, they're not completely dirty, they're not completely clean, but it's a good way to add a little bit of extra fat, a little bit extra carbs that are relatively clean to my diet. One thing that's great about agave compared to other forms of sugar like maple syrup or honey or anything else is it is a super low glycemic index compared to those, so it doesn't spike your blood sugar as much as those others will. So that, it's going to be a lot better for you than completely throwing your blood sugar out of whack constantly.
Sure.
So I use a lot of agave. Big fan of that. I'll put it in stir fries. I'll put it in my overnight oats. It's just a very easy way to add some extra carbs to my diet without bloating to oblivion.
Sure.
And then I do a lot of liquid food as well. So like I try to eat a lot of legumes. I try to eat a lot of greens, but typically I'll sort of pre-digest them, I guess. So like I'll put kale into my smoothies with like beans. I'll usually try to like blend them up, so it's sort of like a refried
beans in your smoothies.
No, not in the smoothie.
Okay.
But when I do eat them, I eat them like sort of.
I was able to be like, dude, you're fucked up.
No. Actually, Rick Carroll kind of taught me this. He takes it to very much the extreme where like almost all his food intake is liquid, and he'll just make smoothies with the nastiest stuff you get. Not nasty, I mean fine on its own, but when you mix it all together, beans, tofu, basically a whole meal, he'll just kind of blend it up and then just drink that while he works. And he's a mover, so he'll just drink that. And he says it tastes like sweet tea. I don't really believe him, but
yeah, I'm gonna have to interview him now because that's insane. Like an example of what everyone else won't want to do. Yeah. And he's a mover. I didn't know he was a mover. That made basically his job is a strongman competition, basically. Like,
yeah, and that dude does eat like a purely whole foods diet, I believe, too. But it's almost all liquid. And that's how he manages it. So I try to find a balance between not being completely gross.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm a 1 to 2 smoothies a day always, actual blended smoothies, and yeah, there's nothing wrong with it, man. I mean, some people think you always got to chew your food, but it's like, we got to get more calories than the average person, and we need to make sure it's always high protein, and smoothies are great, man.
And
you can take them with you. So, yeah.
And then I have some other sort of like more specific things. So I mentioned like managing my blood pressure. One thing I found that's been great for that for me and it helps a lot of people is hibiscus tea. I mean, tea in general, but specifically hibiscus tea has been shown to help reduce blood pressure. And I found that to be pretty effective for me, along with also like doing a lot of conditioning work now that I do at the end of each training session. I'll usually do a little bit of HIIT. And then every day I'll walk 20 to 30 minutes at like a pretty decent pace for some steady state cardio. And I find that keeps me like pretty healthy and feeling a lot better than when I was not doing any cardio whatsoever when I powerlifted. Mm-hmm. So I find that that's helped balance out my blood pressure.
Years ago when I was just trying to bulk and before I even found powerlifting, I was just trying to gain weight and be stronger, develop my body as a vegan. I was eating irresponsibly. I was just eating everything in sight. And, for example, when I started competing in powerlifting, I started at 165 pounds. I remember I weighed in for my first meet at 161, right? And before I ever started gaining weight, I was 135 to 140 pounds.
Oh, wow.
I was a very skinny guy.
Yeah.
And I remember I was living in Philly for a year, and I lived down the street from all these bars that had like really good vegan bar food. And I remember I got up to like 187 that year, but I wasn't strong,
Yeah.
I was like, maybe 1,000-pound club, it's like, that's nothing, in terms of competitive powerlifting, but I hadn't found competitive powerlifting yet. So I remember though, my blood pressure was starting to get pretty high.
I can
imagine, being, 5'7" and weighing that much. It was actually not good for me. And, now these days I weigh on average about 180. I'm starting to finally top out towards the 181 weight class. But because I've done so much more variation, accessory work, and even periods of conditioning with like a sled and box jumps and doing occasionally like CrossFit with my wife, like my blood pressure has stayed level, like healthy the whole time that I've gained this weight. My body composition is just a lot better now.
Yeah. No, I mean, same, like having a healthy body composition does definitely help with blood pressure. Yeah. But putting on mass in general, even if it's muscle mass, can impact it. So you have to manage that. And adding in that extra cardio work is an important tool for doing it.
Right.
And it's something I think more powerlifters seem to be getting more conscious of, I think. There's like an old school mentality of just doing like no conditioning work or minimal conditioning work.
Yeah.
But it's kind of essential for your overall health and to stay in the sport. And it's sort of baked into strongman, so people don't think about it as
Sure,
much. You have to
sure.
do it to be competitive.
Yeah.
Whereas you can get away with not doing it in powerlifting for a while until you start to feel it in your health, and then you have to.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm grateful
One
that
other
I
thing
have a coach that'll program like that for me now. So
oh
I
good,
wouldn't
yeah,
have,
that's always
I wouldn't have been able to make myself do it, but
yeah. Try to make
someone,
yourself do it, but when a coach tells you to, you're going to do it.
yeah, but it has helped a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
He has me do one thing that I am surprised how much this helps with my squat and my deadlift and managing the joint, like the hip pain I was having last year, is get on the belt squat machine and just put on, I don't know, for a bigger guy like you might want to do like 2 plates on each side, but I'll just walk with 135 or 155 or something, and I'll walk for 10 minutes doing like a belt march.
Yeah, I actually love belt marches. I don't do it for quite that long. Normally what I'll do is actually like, I guess, kind of overload it. So go pretty heavy and do it for like shorter time periods.
Okay.
And I do that a lot to like prep for like a yoke carry or like a farmer's walk, actually, to like be able to practice, handling that load on my joints. And so, yeah, I think belt
it's funny. I'll come into the gym and other people will be doing it and they'll have this look on their face like, what the fuck is he making me do? And then I explain to them how much much it helped me, so I recommend that for people.
Yeah, no, they're great. I'm a big fan of those. I'll have to try going for longer.
Yeah, it's just a way to get, for someone like me to get a little just light conditioning in,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it really lights up your whole posterior chain, your quads, depending on what angle you're walking at. But
no, when I go heavy on that for like, 30 seconds at a time, it's brutal.
Yeah. I mean, I might have to stop for 10 to 20 seconds here and there throughout that 10 minutes, but it's always just try to condition yourself to walk as much of it as you can of that 10 minutes.
Yeah. Another big thing I've sort of become a fan of with my diet, so sort of background is I work in like the alternative protein space, kind of trying to develop new types of alternative proteins to replace animal proteins. One of the cooler new products that's come on the market in really the last few years is like the fermented whey proteins. Are you familiar with those?
Yeah, I listened to some of your other podcasts before doing this, and you were talking about Moolis, which I've had.
Yeah.
And it's good. It reminds me of like Yoo-Hoo or something. It's kind of like one of those old school chocolate drinks or whatever. My wife got some packs, and she was even finding them at like TJ Maxx for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's technically vegan.
They are.
So
they're made through just so I guess listeners are aware. It's whey protein, like you would typically derive from a cow, but it's produced through a fermentation process. So this is just basically, the waste product from microorganisms. So the same way you'd ferment beer or wine or, anything else, sourdough, it's just producing whey as the byproduct rather than alcohol or whatever else you're trying to target, which is pretty interesting. And the thing about the whey from fermentation is, yes, it's bioidentical to whey you'd get from a cow, but it's actually much higher in an amino acid called leucine. Which is probably like one of the most important, if not the most.
Yeah, I would say, for, I'm sure you talked about this in your book. I talk about it in my book too. It's basically the one that begins the protein synthesis process. If you don't have enough of it, you can't use all the other amino acids.
It's often described as the foreman of amino acids that tells all the other ones what to do and how to start building muscle.
Right.
And in a lot of plant foods tend to be lower in it. So that on an isolated basis. So it's great that there's now this product and it's literally has the highest concentration of leucine of any protein out there, animal-based or plant-based.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's really like pretty unique and an excellent way to add additional leucine to your diet. So I drink, that every day. Moolis is a great brand. So they actually all get their whey from the same company. Perfect Day produces the whey. And then these companies buy it from them and then add flavoring and stuff to it. So Moolis is a good brand. If you want to buy in bulk, I'm a big fan of MyProtein, their Whey Forward line. You can get it a bit cheaper, especially with
is it? So it's essentially the same thing?
Yeah, it's the same Perfect Day whey that's high in leucine. People are just adding different flavorings to it, essentially, these different companies.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Perfect Day kind of had like their own consumer-facing company at one point called California Performance Co. They shut that down though, so now they just sell to other companies. But yeah, those are the two main ones that sell it right now that I'm aware of: Moolis and MyProtein, their Whey Forward line.
Okay. Okay.
The other thing I've done with my diet is I've begun to become a big fan of mushrooms, and I've started to kind of think about more of this from like a high level perspective, where like you have the animal kingdom, you have the plant kingdom, then we have this whole other kingdom, the fungi kingdom, that's evolved like completely on a different branch from these other two kingdoms most people focus on to get their food from. I think a lot of times people think as vegans, oh, we're limited to the plant kingdom, and that's not true at all. There's like just other kingdoms we can actually get our food from, like, you know, the fungi kingdom. And, you know, the nutrient profile of food in this kingdom is going to be completely different because it had a completely different evolutionary pathway. And there's micronutrients in mushrooms we probably don't even really know about yet, to be quite honest, that we're constantly learning more about. So I think, you know, I always try to, you know, incorporate different types of mushrooms in my diet, trying, you know, a new type as often as I can when I come across them. Or mycelium, which is like the mushroom root. So like Meaty has their like mycelium based meats, which is just, you know, their mushroom root steaks. I think those are great. One thing.
What kind of protein per calorie range do those wind up in?
I don't know the exact ratio off the top of my head, but they do tend to actually be higher than you'd think in protein. You know, you probably think, oh, it's a mushroom, it doesn't have that much protein. The mycelium does. This is like the root of the mushroom. So they're actually pretty comparable with a lot of the soy-based products, and they don't add a lot of fat in them either, like they do a lot of the soy products. So I think they're great, and the micronutrient levels in these are just naturally are insane because there's just so many nutrients packed into the mycelium.
Okay,
I encourage you to look into it. Yeah, I'll say one thing I caution.
Yeah, no, I will. Some
people don't tolerate like the fungi well in large quantities like that. If they're not used to digesting it, it can kind of throw their bodies for a loop. So maybe just eat, you know, a small amount to begin with before you go eat a whole pack of it and then be like, oh, my stomach hurts. Well, you just ate a ton of fungus and you don't normally do that. So that's probably why.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, but that's cool because, you know, I like that we can expand the scope of variety for vegan protein. You know, I know that, like, look, animal-based people think they have all these forms of protein, but it's not really. It's like meat of this, meat of that. Yeah, it's you know, it's like pork, you know, eggs, chicken, beef, dairy. You know, eggs. I mean,
and most of this come from 3 animals, really.
and you know, like we've usually got our main 4 to 5, right? And you know, that's another one, I would say.
Yeah.
So.
I think that there's really untapped potential in the fungi kingdom for alternative proteins and just food options in general for people vegan or non-vegan to explore.
So your line of work and your research to develop, how does that relate to products like this? Is it something totally different? Are you able to talk about it? Or
yeah, I can talk about it a little bit. So we primarily work with the precision fermentation space to provide basically inputs for their processes to make protein. So you got to make the protein out of something, obviously. So we take CO2 and deliver it to, you know, these bio-focused companies that have these organisms that can make the protein and give it to them in a form that the organisms can eat and then actually produce the protein. Wow. And the idea is to kind of, you know, tackle, you know, not only the alternative protein space and deliver more plant-based proteins to people. I guess in this case, they're not all technically derived from plants, but you get the idea. They're vegan proteins. And then simultaneously kind of tackling climate change and finding something to do with all the CO2 that we have out there in food.
That's wild.
Is a great idea. Like, why not just eat all the CO2? You know, people eat a lot of food. Like,
that seems like a hard sell at first mention. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I realized that recently, like talking to people, they're like, oh, so you're going to take like the nasty emissions and make people eat them? It's like, well, not quite. It's just carbon. We're not like the molecule is going to change. We're just taking, we're just extracting the carbon from the molecule. It's the same carbon you eat in all your other food.
Right. Yeah. I wonder if people would find that more weird than lab grown meat.
That's an interesting question.
Eating CO2 or lab grown meat. Let's go do a poll.
The thing is, like, I don't know. I'm sort of the opinion that when these products get to market, like, yes, the information should be out there for people to know how it's made if they really want to know, but you don't have to like directly advertise unless regulators say you have to. If it's literally identical, like the same elemental and biological makeup as the food you're already eating, you know?
Yeah, well, imagine how mad people get when they like something and then you tell them it's vegan.
Yeah,
In this
exactly.
regard,
And
they're
there
going
have
to be
been
like, wait,
studies on
this is CO2.
Like I saw a study the other day where they'd give people a couple food options, and they did the study where one of the food options had a vegan label and one of them it didn't. It was the same exact food item. It just wasn't labeled
Right,
as vegan. And more
right.
people would choose it when it wasn't labeled vegan. So like you don't
Yeah,
necessarily have to tell someone it's vegan or not vegan, right? Like
right.
anyways, that's a side
Yeah, I know.
tangent.
People are frustrating. I mean, and the cool thing is you're trying to do something to hopefully lead to products that they can enjoy
Yeah,
that
the
will help.
idea is to meet people where they're at. So taking
Right.
something like a whey protein or egg protein or another protein that people literally already eat, they get it from animals, and fine, they're not willing
Yep.
to try the plant-based alternatives. Here's the exact same thing without animal suffering.
Yeah.
And you'll
Yeah.
probably still get resistance to that, which is super frustrating because it's literally the exact same thing. You're telling me you enjoy it more with the animal suffering baked in. But it's worth a try.
Yeah, totally. And and this is what part of I know our mission as aspiring athletes is if we don't get them that way, we got to show them that we're people you got to beat if you're not going to come to our team. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we do our best to demonstrate by example, and I really admire what you're doing. I think it's a really interesting life path, and quite honestly, I think we'll probably have to continue another chapter of this discussion sometime because I know I had some things written down. I just don't think we have time to get to. So
Yeah. Tell you what, let me rapid fire the last few changes I made to my diet.
Oh, okay.
These will be super quick, and then I know we're coming up on an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Similar to mushrooms, another big thing I'm a fan of is incorporating algae or seaweed into your diet. I think that's a huge untapped potential. Tons of nutrients there. We probably are
In what form are you doing that?
Yeah, so I think like there's the dry seaweed snacks. People are probably familiar with those. The other thing I like to do is
for like iodine and things like that.
It's a great source of iodine and also a lot of other
Okay.
nutrients, B vitamins, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Nutrients we don't even know about, I'm sure.
Yeah, aren't sea greens the most B vitamin rich plants on the planet?
Yeah, they're one of like the best like natural sources of B12.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, they're super vitamin rich in general. So one thing I like to do is take like dried seaweed. You can find it in a lot of Asian markets, and I'll like collect my food scraps over time from like produce and freeze it, and then I'll take all of that, mix it in with some like mushroom scraps I have, mix it in with some of the dried seaweed, and then make my own like vegetable broth from that, and then I'll cook my rice in it. So then I'm just adding like so many extra nutrients to my rice which I eat a lot of rice. So
that's cool.
I'm a big fan of that. The other thing I'm big on are beets. I try to get a lot of more nitrates into my diet to help with blood flow and recovery.
You do like whole beets, like juicing them, or
no, I don't juice them.
Cooking them.
I'll literally
a beet powder.
Beet powder is okay. What I'll do is I like to go for the whole foods when I can. I'll use beet powder sometimes, but I'll buy the beets, boil them up, chop them up, and then freeze them and put them into my smoothies. Actually,
so your toilet bowl is permanently red.
It does get a little bit red sometimes. Yeah, it does.
Warning to listeners: if you do this, yeah,
I'm telling you, it makes a difference for recovery for sure.
That's cool.
And then the other thing I'm big fan on too is I think a lot of people and a lot of vegans, like we eat a lot of nuts. People are big on that. Seeds are also great, probably better in terms of their macronutrients and protein to fat ratio, and they're also super high in minerals and the metals that you need to eat. They're just not as accessible. I think like you're not going to eat a handful of like chia seeds or anything. Like it's kind of weird, but
more like sprinkle them on things regularly.
Yeah, I eat overnight oats every morning in my breakfast, and I put flax, hemp, chia in there, some agave, a little bit of protein powder, soy milk, and then just leave it overnight, and that's my easy breakfast every morning.
Okay.
I mentioned legumes a little bit. I try to eat one of my meals being pretty like heavy in legumes, and normally I sort of pre-process those legumes the best I can. So either using like super small lentils that are easier to digest, or like with beans, I'll kind of blend them up to do like a refried bean and then like stick that in like a protein wrap or something. I'm a big fan of mixed berries every single day. And these are all things I do like every single day. I try to. That's the goal at least.
Yeah, berries are great.
And then like for my antioxidants, I try to eat turmeric, ginger, and cinnamon every day as well.
Okay.
But I'd say those are sort of like some of the smaller changes I try to shoot for now.
That's cool. I think we'll also have to check back in when you're like 38 and see how much this has helped you compared to other 38-year-olds at your competitions. You know what I mean?
Hopefully, yeah. And I'm sure I'll have a lot more new things I've learned too, and a lot more
totally, man.
new science that's come out since then.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, this was a wealth of knowledge. Appreciate you for it. Is there anything you got coming up that you want to mention? Anything? I'm going to totally include all your handles and stuff in the outro that I do, but so you don't have to do all that. But if there's anything off the top of your head that you want people to know about, go ahead.
Yeah, I have Natural Strongman USA Championship, so Nationals for Natural Strongman coming up at the end of January, mid-January, end January.
Okay.
Hoping to win that.
Where's that going to be?
That's going to be in New Jersey. And then from there, I'll be making another run at Worlds, assuming everything goes well, which I expect it to. I'm also coaching now. So I offer coaching, and I'm super interested in specifically working with, vegan strongmen, and I work with quite a few now. So doing both nutrition coaching and programming and trying to sort of merge those. And I do that with my fiance, who's a registered dietitian, helps me with a lot of it. That's kind of the other thing, a little side hustle I have going on right now. But yeah, I'd say that those are the two main things. I eventually would like to get around to writing another book. Not quite there yet, but, it'll be coming in, within a year or two.
Yeah, I feel you. Same. There you have it. Thank you so much, Bradie, for coming on, sharing your wisdom. I can't wait to see the kind of numbers you put up and the kind of medals you win in the very soon future to come, I'm sure. Get Bradie's book, The Living Machine, available on Amazon. He's also got a website with merchandise for his brand Vegan Hercules. That's veganhercules.company.site. While you're at it, get Bradie's book and get my book, The Way of the Vegan Meathead. Also on Amazon. 90% of the world's book sales go through Amazon now, so I don't discourage people from getting it there. It's just the easiest place. But if you want to get it directly through me, I always throw in extra stickers and goodies at www.veganmeathead.com or daniel-austin.com. My audiobook is also available on both sites, Apple, Amazon, Audible. So check out the audiobook if you like listening to my voice so much. So that's it for this episode. We'll be back soon. Got some more ideas of some phenomenal vegan athletes to interview. So this is not the end. Hope to see you at my deadlift and donuts party celebrating 20 years of veganism on November 8th in Norfolk at Shark City Barbell. Don't forget to RSVP at my site, daniel-austin.com. It's been a good one. Until next time, stay strong.